We are here today set for a final.
Todd Alvey on behalf of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. I'm present and ready to proceed, Your Honor.
Brooks Barfield for the mother, Tashida Smith, present and ready. My client is present as well.
Stacey Grant, attorney ad litem for the child. I'm present and I'm ready.
Bill Taylor representing Mark Roper. I'm present and ready. He is not. I've had no contact with him.
Ken Arajo for the unknown father. I'm present and ready to proceed.
Carla King with Emerald Area CASA.
Mr. Abbey, you can call your first witness.
Your Honor, before I call any witnesses, I have a number of documents I would like to pre-admit if it please the court.
Sure, that'd be great.
We would offer as petitioner's exhibit 1, business records affidavit for the drug screens that Tashida Smith has taken.
I would object as to the specific results of the documents as being hearsay and as far as not being scientifically reliable, just in paper form without testimony from a drug expert or a chemist.
All right, overruled. Petitioner's exhibit, you said, Mr. Abbey, you said exhibit 1?
Correct, Your Honor.
All right, will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would offer as petitioner's exhibit 2, a certified copy of the family plan of service that Ms. Smith has signed. And again, these have all been presented to the council prior to today. Petitioner's exhibit 3, Your Honor, would be certified copy of the status order from this court that's on file with the court and has previously been provided to all counsel. Petitioner's exhibit 4, Your Honor, would be a certified copy of the temporary orders from this court. Again, previously provided to all counsel. Exhibit 5, Your Honor, would be a certified copy of the original petition that was filed in this case with the included with that is the affidavit of the original investigator. Your Honor, with that, Your Honor, I would call Deputy Bo Lake. On or about May 31st of 2022, were you on duty in Armstrong County?
Yes, sir.
At that time, did you have an opportunity to have any contact with a person by the name of Tashida, Tisheda Smith?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what that contact was.
We'd received a call, me and Deputy Graham, to the Dollar General located here in Claude, Texas, and by a complainant that had observed their stolen vehicle out of Amarillo sitting in the parking lot. So me and Deputy Graham responded to that call.
And when you responded to that call, who did you find?
The two complainants, they're actually daughters, I believe, of the complainants, had located the vehicle and were sitting in the parking lot and had observed, later identified as Tashida, walking in from the vehicle into the store.
And did you eventually make any arrest based upon that complaint?
Yes, me and Deputy Graham did place her under arrest for an off-road motor vehicle.
And when you say her, was that Tashida Smith that you arrested?
Yes, sir. Once she was identified, yes, sir.
And what did you arrest her for?
Unauthorized use of a motor vehicle.
And when you arrested her, was that on or about May 31st of 2022?
Yes, sir.
Did you find any children with her?
Yes, she had a young child with her. Yes, sir.
Was that young child in the vehicle when you found the child?
No, sir. The child was inside the store with her.
Right. Do you know if she was arrested for any additional offenses other than the unlawful use of a motor vehicle?
No, sir.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you, Judge. How are you today, sir?
Just fine, sir.
All right. In regards to this case, when did you first observe the vehicle?
As soon as I pulled in the parking lot.
Okay. And is that the first time you saw the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you pulled in, and who made that complaint? Are you aware who made that complaint about the?
I can't recall their name, but there were two sisters, I believe.
Okay. And did you ever observe the vehicle being actually operated?
No, sir.
Okay. When you approached the vehicle, was Tashida in the vehicle?
No, sir.
Okay. Was there anyone in the vehicle?
No, sir.
Okay. How did you make the determination that Tashida operated the vehicle?
From the complainants had observed her, I believe, and then attempted to get video of her coming into the store. And I did get some video, but it wasn't actual video of her in the vehicle.
Okay. And did you ever see her operate that vehicle in an erratic or unsafe manner?
No, sir.
Did you ever see her operate that vehicle with the child in the vehicle?
Briefly, yes, sir. Sorry.
That's okay. When did you see that?
I did observe her get into the stolen vehicle from a video taken at the scene from the complainant's video camera. And that was shown to me by one of the witnesses that were at the Dollar General location.
Okay.
She did enter it, yes, sir.
Did you actually observe that?
Yes, I saw the video that they showed me on the phone. Yes, sir.
Okay. But did you actually observe the vehicle yourself?
Not real. No, sir.
Okay. You understand my question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Was other than the report that it was an unauthorized vehicle, use of a vehicle, did there appear to be any actions by Tashida Smith that appeared to be dangerous to the child?
No, sir. Not physically dangerous. No, sir.
All right. I'll pass the witness.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
Thanks, Your Honor. Just briefly, sir, did Ms. Smith ever identify the father or any other relative of the child?
No, sir. I didn't ever get a name. She said she was en route to Houston, I believe, to see her mother, but that was it. No definite names. No, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Naranjo.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Grant.
Deputy, did she make any statements to you as to how she came into possession of the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. But I was trying to identify her to start with. So that was more important than, because I'd already seen the video, I believe. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
And as a general rule and through your expertise and training in law enforcement, is it safe to have children in stolen vehicles?
no, ma'am, not at all.
And in any situation, would you remove children from that condition if you came upon it?
Yes, ma'am.
And in this case, is that what you did?
Yes, ma'am.
And who came to retrieve the children from where you were located?
CPS. I took the child to the local dispatch/jail office, and the sheriff contacted CPS, and CPS came and got the child.
Okay, so CPS retrieved Bible from the sheriff's office, not from the scene, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and did you have any other information of any other parent or family member that you could have contacted?
No, ma'am, not at all.
Okay, and so you transferred that responsibility to CPS at the time you transferred the child. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, pass the witness, Judge.
All right, Mr. Albee, any other questions for?
Just a couple. Deputy, you saw a video of Miss Smith driving the vehicle. Was a vehicle occupied when she was driving it in that video?
With her and the child, yes, sir.
Was the child in a proper child restraint safety seat?
No, sir.
Thank you. I'll pass it.
Okay, Mr. Barfield, any further questions?
No, Your
You're
Honor.
both free to go and tend to your other duties. Thank you very much. Y'all be safe.
Thank you, ma'am.
I would call Courtney Tucker, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Tucker.
Ms. Tucker, how are you employed?
I'm a critical response investigator with the Department of Family and Protective Services.
Were you still employed on May 31st of 2022?
Yes, sir.
You said you were employed as a critical response investigator. What does that mean?
It is a specialized investigator in regards to cases like sex abuse, sex trafficking, physical abuse, those kind of things.
On May 31st of 2022, were you asked to investigate a case concerning Tisheda, Tisheda Smith and her child?
Correct. I was on call at that point.
And when you, first of all, what were the reasons for you being asked to begin your investigation?
So I was asked to go to Claude in regards to a case that came in regarding Tisheda Smith and her son. But at that point, the information I was given was that Tisheda was in a stolen vehicle and she was being arrested for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. And the 2-year-old was unrestrained in the back seat. And there was no information given at that time for anyone to come get the child.
And when you received your request, what was your response?
I headed to Claude immediately.
And when you say Claude, is that in Armstrong County?
Correct.
And when you arrived in Claude, did you find Miss Smith?
Correct.
Where was she?
She was at the jail there.
And was the child Bible with her?
Yeah, she was holding him in her lap.
And how old is Bible?
2 years old.
Did you talk with Miss Smith about the allegations that she was being charged with?
Correct. She didn't reply. I asked multiple questions. She didn't reply. And so I asked from there in regards to family or someone for Bible to go to.
Mr. Albee, let me interrupt you real quick. Ms. Smith, I need you to sit down, remain on camera. It's important that your attorney knows that you are present for this proceeding and that we have you
I'm sorry.
connected, that you're hearing us. So are you in a place where you can stay seated there on
Yes.
the floor? Okay. All right, thank you. It's fine for you to mute while you're not speaking, but I just need you to stay still and stay on camera for us.
When you talked with Miss Smith, did she advise you who the father to Bible was?
Yes, Mark Roper.
And did you attempt to find Mr. Roper?
Yes, sir.
Did you attempt to find any other family members who would be possible placements for Bible?
Yes, sir. We tried to contact about 10 different people.
And were you able to find any suitable family members that you could place Bible with?
Not at that time. We did have multiple conversations with 2 different aunts, but they were just unable to care for him at that
It's
time.
dangerous to have a child in a vehicle unrestrained when you're stealing a vehicle.
Objection leading.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor.
Okay.
Based upon your knowledge of the facts, do you have an opinion as to whether or not Ms. Smith was endangering her child?
Correct.
What is that opinion?
That he is supposed to be restrained in a car seat due to his age. That way, if there was an accident, he wouldn't be caused physical harm.
Was Ms. Smith's actions causing danger to the child?
Yes, sir.
And was the environment that she placed him in dangerous to the child?
Yes, sir.
Did you determine in your investigation whether or not Ms. Smith was going to be released from jail on that day?
I was actually put on this case to help the original worker. He was on a different case at that time, Ruben Martinez. I do not know anything after that night of removal. I apologize.
At the time that you removed the child or were seeking removal, did you believe the child was in danger?
Yes, sir.
And you couldn't find a suitable place to put the child in with any family member?
Yes, sir.
That's what you're on.
Mr. Garfield?
At any time, did you observe my client, I represent Ms. Smith, operating the vehicle in an unsafe manner?
No, sir. When I arrived, she was inside the jail holding Bible.
Did you ever receive any information from anyone that she had operated the vehicle in an unsafe manner?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. When you observed Bible, did the child have any obvious physical injuries?
No physical injuries. He just had some dirt on him and he didn't have a shirt on.
Okay. So your main concern at this point was that the child, from information you got, the child was not in a car seat.
Correct. And that mother was being arrested. No one was there to care for the child.
I understand. I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Taylor?
Was Ms. Smith able to provide you any contact information at any later date regarding how to locate Mr. Roper, Mark Roper?
No, not for Mark. No, sir.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Ronham?
Did Miss Smith mention anyone else who may be the father other than Mr. Roper?
She not for Mr. Roper.
I'll pass the witness.
Okay, and Ms. Grant.
Ms. Tucker, is it generally unsafe for children to be loose in a moving vehicle?
Absolutely.
And is that not only unsafe to the child, but also to the person driving the vehicle?
Correct.
Could the child interfere or impede with the safe operation of the vehicle?
Objection, speculation.
Would you have, was a car seat available when you arrived?
No, ma'am. I had to bring one.
Okay, so the vehicle, there was not any type of child restraint device in the vehicle?
I did not observe the vehicle.
Okay, but there was not one brought with the child to the jail for your use?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have any conversations with Ms. Smith on whether or not she had a child safety device anywhere? A car
No,
seat? Okay.
no, ma'am. We had difficulty getting her to answer basic questions.
Okay. When you say difficulty, what do you mean by that?
We would ask her multiple times in regards to, handing Bible over and family, and she just wouldn't reply.
So did you take that as a refusal to assist you, or how did you take that?
That she was being difficult and not cooperating with the department.
Okay. Was there any language or barrier of understanding to your knowledge going on?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have any interactions with her where you were able to communicate with her and know if there was a communication barrier?
She actually communicated with the sheriff, Melissa Anderson, in regards to getting her phone.
Okay. Was she aware at the time that you were taking Bible that she was under arrest, or do you know?
Yes, ma'am, she was. Sheriff Anderson made that clear. And I also introduced myself, explained my position, and told her why I was there.
Okay. Did she provide you any medical information in regard to Bible?
No, ma'am.
Did she provide you any feeding schedule or any care information for Bible?
No, ma'am.
Did she provide you with any clothing or personal items for you to take for Bible?
No, ma'am.
And you said the child had no shirt on. Did the child have shoes on?
I don't recall.
Okay. Was the child in diapers still, or was the child potty trained at the time?
In diapers still.
Were you provided any diapers, wipes, or items for changing diapers at that time?
There actually was a bag from Dollar General with a package of diapers in it.
Okay. And you were given that from Miss Smith's belongings, I assume?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did it turn out that Bible needed any medication or specific care items upon your investigation?
I'm not sure after that night, not while I was helping the other worker.
Okay. And were you able to meet his basic needs once he was taken into your care?
Yes, ma'am.
And prior to taking him into your care, did you explore all options for a less serious outcome, such as removal of the child from any family?
Yes, ma'am. Multiple different.
Okay. And in your opinion, was this the only choice you had at the time available
Yes.
to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Pass the witness, Judge.
No objection.
All right, Ms. Tucker, thank you very much for logging in. You're free to go at this time.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge. I would call Sheriff Melissa Anderson of Armstrong County.
Your Honor, prior to starting the testimony of Sheriff Anderson, I need to renew a previous notification that I made in a previous hearing that the lovely sheriff is my second cousin. No one has had any objection through the course of this case, but I wanted to put on the record that her and I have not had any discussions or meetings regarding this case and have had no conversations about any of the facts of this case. But for full disclosure to the final hearing, I wanted that on the record.
Okay, I appreciate it, Ms. Grant. And
Thank you.
Mr. Alley can even get her sworn testimony to that effect. So proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sheriff Anderson, you are the sheriff for Armstrong County.
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been the sheriff in Armstrong County?
Since January 1st, 2021.
So you were the acting sheriff on May 31st of 2022?
Yes, sir.
Were you on duty on that date?
Yes, sir. I was the acting dispatcher at the time.
And were you present when Tashada Smith was arrested and brought to the dispatch jail there in Armstrong County?
Yes, sir.
What was she arrested for?
She was arrested for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle.
And did you talk to her about the unauthorized use of a motor vehicle charge?
I did not have interaction with her in that capacity at the time. No, sir.
Was she with anybody when she was arrested and brought to your jail?
She had her small child with her. Yes, sir.
Did you talk with Miss Smith about Bible?
I did not. I was the one who made contact with CPS.
And Did at any time while she was, well, first of all, Armstrong County is a fairly small county.
Mhm.
And you don't typically house inmates in your jail, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Where did you have Miss Smith transported to?
She was transported to the Carson County Jail where we house inmates.
And either before or after you transported her to the Carson County Jail, did you have any interaction with her about who the family members that Bible could go be placed with?
I believe we tried to discuss that with her at the time. I don't believe she was very forthcoming with any information about anybody that could come help. Yes, sir. She did. There were no names provided.
Today, have you run any searches on Miss Smith?
Today, have I run any searches on her? Is that the question?
That's the question.
Today, I've not run any searches on her. However, sir, I have received a felony warrant for her from my district clerk's office that has come on my desk.
So currently, you have a felony warrant in hand for the arrest of Miss Smith.
Yes, sir. I have a felony warrant. It is a bond surrender for an unauthorized use of a motor vehicle.
And would that be the unauthorized use of a motor vehicle that she was arrested for about a year ago?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'll pass the
Thank you, Judge. Sheriff, when now you mentioned that was a bond surrender.
Yes, sir.
So in other words, her bond company, for whatever reason, came off her bond. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So this is not a bond forfeiture. In other words, it's not a capias issued with a NISI from the court, a judgment NISI. It is actually the reason the warrant was issued because the bond company, for whatever reason, came off the case.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you know when that warrant or that capias was issued?
The affidavit was signed, it looks like signed by the judge on May 22nd. And then it was given to me and I received it today, the 24th.
Okay. Of 2023.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this would be fairly new information that you have and we have just received.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. When you observed the child initially at the dispatch, I'm going to call it the dispatch jail,
Yes,
did the child seem to have any physical injuries that gave you any concern?
I did not note any physical injuries at the time. No, sir.
Okay. All right. I'll pass the witness.
Sheriff Anderson, did you notice whether the child had on footwear or not?
I do not believe he did. In my
Okay.
recollection, I do not believe he did.
Okay. And do you recall if he had on a shirt or not?
I cannot comment on that. I do not remember.
Okay. And through your training and understanding with the laws of the state of Texas and your position, was this child of the age and size that she needed to be restrained in a child safety seat?
Yes. Needed to be.
And are you aware of whether or not a child safety seat was available at the time of the arrest?
I am not aware. I did not see one, so I'm not aware.
Okay. And did you find Ms. Smith to be cooperative with your questions or needs during the transition to Carson County Jail?
I did not have much interaction with her in the transition to Carson County Jail. I did pat her down for weapons. She did comply with that.
Okay. And obviously your interactions with her were of a criminal nature, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so if she didn't speak to you, you wouldn't have questioned her beyond her constitutional rights, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Pass the witness, Judge.
Just to follow up on the court's directions a minute ago, Sheriff Anderson, you are in some form or fashion kin to Miss Grant.
Yes, sir.
And have you had any conversations with Miss Grant about this case or Miss Smith prior to today's hearing?
No, sir.
I'll pass with you, Sean.
Sheriff, when you did the pat down, did you find any type of weapons or contraband on Miss Smith's person?
No, sir.
Pass the witness.
All right. Anybody have any other questions?
Nothing further on.
Sheriff, thank you so much. We appreciate you and have a good rest of your day.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Abbey?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Ruben Martinez. Were you assigned to do an investigation concerning Tashada Smith and her child?
Correct.
And when did you become involved in that case?
That night. So I was out on another investigation when we were both on call. So Courtney had to respond to that. And then when I first made contact was when we arrived at the office when she had bipolar.
And did you attempt to talk to Miss Smith about the allegations and the reasons for her arrest?
Correct. When I first had contact with her was on June 1st.
And did she talk to you about what the situation with Bible was?
Yes.
Did she advise you who the father to Bible was?
Possibly Mark Roper.
And was she able to provide you with any identification information or where we could find Mark Roper?
No,
Did you make extensive searches to attempt to find him?
correct.
Have you found anybody who identifies as Mark Roper?
No,
Did you also attempt to find other family members that you could place Bible with?
correct. Yes, we searched multiple family members and talked to multiple family members that night.
Were you successful in finding any family members that were acceptable to have Bible placed in their home?
No, sir, not at that time.
Did you ask that the child be removed from Miss Smith?
Yes.
And what were the reasons that you asked that the child be removed from Miss Smith?
So at that time, it was exigent circumstances, like was previously discussed, due to the arrest and the no car seat and stuff like that. We had possession of. So after discussing with Tashida Smith at the time of when I went to the jail to interview her, I asked her about her sobriety and how her method, or how she was maintaining sobriety due to the history of reviewing that impact history.
Let me stop you there, Mr. Martinez. Tell me what made you ask her about sobriety.
The impact history. So looking back in the history, or the department history with CPS, I looked in 2016. It showed that she tested positive for methamphetamines on
Objection, hearsay, objection, no predicate set at all.
Sustain.
Is it your job, Mr. Martinez, to review the Child Protective Service history of any parent that you're investigating?
Correct.
And you do that by looking at an electronic file that is held for each person that's been investigated by Child Protective Services?
Correct.
In that file are the workers who work for the Texas Department of Family Protective Services, do they, at the time of any contacts, document the contacts that they make?
Correct.
Is that done through the regular course of their business?
Correct.
And is that done to help refresh memories of people who are reviewing each person's file?
Correct.
Your Honor, may I interrupt for 1 second? Can I ask Ms. Tashida Smith who's in the room with her so that I'm aware of who else present in this hearing that may be offering information?
All right, Ms. Smith, is somebody else present with you?
No, ma'am. There's nobody present with me.
Who are you talking to?
No, I had a phone call from my husband. But
Okay,
nobody's present with me.
all right. Are you on the phone with him now?
No, ma'am.
Okay, just understand that nobody else can be assisting you with any kind of answers or talking with you. You can talk with your lawyer at any point in time that you need to.
Understood.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
So, Mr. Martinez, the information that you were looking at concerning 2016 from Ms. Smith was in this electronic file?
Correct.
And did it show a history of illegal substance abuse?
Correct.
Is that the reason that you asked Ms. Smith about her sobriety?
Correct.
Did she respond and tell you what her sobriety levels were?
Yes, at the time when I was speaking with her, she stated that she last used 3 weeks prior to me talking to her, and then she had since stopped at that time.
And what was the substance that she was using 3 weeks prior to you talking to her?
I specifically asked her about the sobriety for methamphetamines, and that's when she responded the way she did.
Did you ask her to drug screen for you?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Do you know if she drug screened for you?
I do not. I don't, due to her still being incarcerated in jail, I do not recall, to be honest with you.
During the entire time that you were involved in Ms. Smith's case, where was she?
In jail, at the Carson County Jail, from my knowledge.
Your job as investigator was to be the main contact with Ms. Smith from May 31st until there was an adversary hearing, correct?
Correct.
And during that period of time, did you ask her who the father to the Bible was?
If I recall correctly, yes, sir. I believe I asked her that the father was Mark Roper and that it was, he didn't sign the acknowledgement of paternity at that time.
And at no time did she ever tell you it was anybody else?
No, sir.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not at the time that you removed Bible, if Ms. Smith had engaged in conduct or allowed Bible to be placed with persons who engaged in conduct which endangered Bible's physical or emotional well-being?
So I would say, yes, there was a concern there that there could have been placed with misconduct. Yes, sir. To continue on, when asking her about, where Bible was when she would use the methamphetamine, she would state that he was always with her. And then I asked, where was he or where would y'all be? And she responded, wherever they'd be staying with and who they would be staying with. And that moment it was described, he's sometimes in the room or more than 6 feet apart.
So would you also agree with me that she knowingly placed and knowingly allowed Bible to remain in conditions of surroundings which endangered his physical or emotional well-being?
Correct.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you, Judge. Now, what periods of time are we talking about? What year, what month are we talking about here?
When I first spoke with her, it was on June 1st of 2022.
Okay. And at this particular time, when you spoke with her, was Bible with her?
No.
Did you make any observations of the child?
When he first came into our custody, yes, sir.
And what physical harm did there appear to be to the child?
There appeared to be no physical harm to him at that time when he first came into our custody.
Okay. After your initial investigation, what else did you do in regards to this case?
So after the concerns of that came to light, I guess we talked to, I think it was staffed, and then foster care was notified due to the concerns. And then from there, I think it was Dr. Pomeroy, if I remember correctly, ordered a drug test on Bible.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Okay. And now, at the time you're having conversations with Teshada, where are those conversations taking place?
That was at the Carson County Jail.
Okay. Okay. So during your involvement in the case, I believe you testified, and forgive me for repeating stuff, she was incarcerated the whole time you were involved in this case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
See, I believe it was on June 20 of 2022. You sent me an email stating that you had been able to contact Mark Roper and provided me with a cell phone number for him. You recall that?
I think we did have a cell phone number for him, but honestly, I do not recall the email, if I'm honest.
He said, Mr. Taylor, I was able to contact Mr. Roper, and here is his cell phone number.
Okay.
And I provided me with that number. And multiple, but you had not been able to obtain any other contact information like an address or an email address. That
right. I think we had a phone number for him, and we made attempts that day, but I don't know if I remember talking to him directly. I don't recall.
Then subsequently, I communicated back to you that multiple efforts to reach him at that number had been unsuccessful. I had left messages, but he had not responded to any of those, and asked you if you had had any other contact with him. And you replied on July 11 that you also had tried to reach out to him at that number, and eventually, with no success, and eventually it had been disconnected, and you had not obtained any additional information that would provide it to me if you did. Apparently, you had obtained no additional information since then. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, was he on Bible birth certificate?
I don't recall. I just remember talking about the acknowledgement of paternity that wasn't signed on that.
Okay. And basically, he's made no efforts to make any contact. Is that correct?
Correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Martinez, did Ms. Smith make any mention to you of any alleged father other than Mr. Roper?
I do not recall, if I'm honestly. The only thing that I recall is Mark Roper's name.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Great.
Mr. Martinez, do you recall whether the child had on shoes at the time of removal, or were you privy to that information?
When I first arrived at the office, Ms. Tucker had already gotten some clothes, had him already taken care of all of his needs and stuff. So I wouldn't have observed him at the time of when she picked him up with the shoes and stuff, or without the shoes.
Okay. By observing the child, do you have an opinion as to whether the child is of size that you would make the decision to transport him or her in a car seat?
Yes, the child definitely needs to be in a car seat. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you transported the child, if you did you guys use a car seat?
Yes, we used one that was here at the office. Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you have any occasion to interview Ms. Smith directly?
Yes.
And during that interview, did you find her to be cooperative?
So at first she was she was mad and at first, try to get her to talk to me. So we ended up talking. I remember giving her over the child caregiver resource form. She was kind of hesitant to fill it out, but I just explained to her how it was beneficial, to see if we can get placement for other relatives and stuff like that. But throughout, like maybe in the beginning, she was a little bit resistant, but then she talked to me pretty cooperatively after that.
Okay. Did she not express to you whether or not the child's father would be an available and appropriate placement?
I honestly don't recall fully.
Okay.
About him. I mean, I know we contacted him and it was discussed briefly, but I don't remember her. No, ma'am, I don't recall fully.
Okay. All right. Pass the witness, Judge.
Is everybody good with Mr. Martinez leaving us at this time and going on about his day?
No
No
objection.
objection.
No objection.
All right. Thank y'all. Mr. Martinez, you're free to leave us at this time. Thank you very much and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
I would call Tasha McIntyre, you're currently placed.
He's placed in a foster home in Lubbock, Texas,
And how long has he been in that foster home?
since removal.
And how old was he when we removed him?
He had just turned 2 years old.
And he's just recently had his 3rd birthday.
It's coming up.
Okay. And how's he doing in that foster home?
He's doing phenomenal.
Were there any delays that were determined that he had when he was removed?
There are a few delays in his movement, attachment issues, and we do have 4 different therapists in that area.
And so he's been going to therapy to overcome the delays that he had at the time of removal.
Yes, sir.
Has the foster family been making sure he makes all of those appointments for all of those therapists?
Absolutely.
Currently, does he have any special issues that we need the court to be aware of?
Not currently. The main thing is that his attachment therapist, and that is our main focus right now.
And what does an attachment therapist, what's that focus specifically discussing or working with?
His attachment issues, he has issues with being detached from foster mom, from being detached from people that have been in his life constantly. And we're working with him on those issues.
Now, has the current foster mom and foster family expressed an interest in being a possible permanent placement for this child?
Yes, sir.
Are they a licensed foster home that an adoption would be available?
Yes, sir.
Do they have a criminal history in that home?
No, sir.
Is there a history of substance abuse in that home?
No, sir.
Have you maintained contact with that home, that foster family, and with this child since the child was removed?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not sure that I asked you this. Were you the original caseworker or permanency specialist for this case?
Yes, sir.
So this has been your case from the beginning.
Yes, sir.
The child's mother is Tashada Smith.
That is correct.
And when Bible was taken from removed from Tashada, she named a person by the name of Mark Roper as the father. Have we done a paternity registry search?
Yes, sir. That was completed by investigations before this was handed to me.
And did that paternity registry search show that no one has claimed paternity for this child?
That's correct.
And the whole time that you have had the case, no father has stepped forward to claim that he is the father to the child?
I did have contact with Mark Roper in the beginning of the case, and then he disappeared after one phone call, but he never admitted to me to being the father.
And we attempted to have him to genetically test him, but we couldn't find him.
That's correct.
And it was in fact ordered that we genetically test him, correct?
That's correct.
Ms. Smith was in jail at the time of removal. How long did she remain in jail? Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly. It was a couple visits there in Carson County Jail that I had to go see her face to face.
You developed a service plan for her?
Yes, sir.
And you went over that service plan with her?
In person at the jail at Carson County.
And did she acknowledge that she understood the services that she needed to work?
Yes, by signing the service plan, she sure did.
And when you were discussing the services that you wanted her to work, did she object to any of those services?
She didn't object to the services, but she was still not understanding why her child was removed.
All right. We want to go through some services that she was ordered to complete. She was ordered to actively participate and complete parenting classes. Has she completed any parenting classes?
She sent me a certificate of completion this week of a online parenting class that was not approved by this department. She initiated the ones at Family Support Services last August, and still had not completed them.
Okay, let's talk about the certificate that she sent you. Did she talk to you about that particular class before she took that class?
No, sir. I just received the certificate and I wrote back to her letting her know that that was not an approved course according to the court-ordered service plan.
And what specifically was wrong with the course that she took that makes it not approved?
It's an online course that's completed in one day and is not in depth like the one that we asked her to do at Family Support Services.
And you specifically asked her to work a 10-week class, or if not, then a 4 one-day classes.
That is correct.
All right. She was asked to complete a substance abuse assessment or an OSAR evaluation. Did she complete an OSAR evaluation?
Not to my knowledge. We were a no call, no show at 2 scheduled appointments with Linda Dudley and Amarillo, but not to my knowledge, no, sir.
All right. So Linda Dudley runs the OSAR evaluations out of Amarillo.
That is correct.
And you scheduled one, the first one on what date?
January 27th of 2023.
And did, as far as you know, did Ms. Smith attend that OSAR evaluation?
I received notification from Linda Dudley that she was a no call, no show, but I also wanted known that Tashetta scheduled these on her own with Miss Dudley. I did not schedule them.
Okay. And then you are aware that there was a second appointment scheduled on February the 17th.
That is correct.
And she also no-showed that scheduled appointment.
That is correct.
And she has not provided you with any kind of a completion of any kind of either the OSAR evaluation or anything that would be an equivalent to an OSAR evaluation.
That is correct.
Ms. Smith was asked to randomly drug screen during the length of the case.
Yes, sir.
And has she, well, did she cooperate and randomly drug screen for you at times?
At times.
All right. On August the 2nd of 2022, did she do a UA drug screen for you?
Yes.
Now, that would have been approximately 3 months after she was arrested.
Yes, that was upon her release from Carson County Jail the first time that I was able to get a UA.
All right. And did you ask her to hair follicle drug screen on August the 26th of 2022?
Yes, sir.
And what was the results of that drug screen?
Positive for methamphetamines.
Did you ask her to drug screen, UA drug screen in September of 2022?
Yes, sir.
And did she take a UA drug screen on September the 21st?
Yes, sir. It was positive.
For what?
Methamphetamines again.
Did you ask her to drug screen on October the 3rd of 2022?
Yes, sir.
What was the result of that?
It was a negative UA.
Did you ask her to drug screen on October the 26th of 2022?
Yes, sir.
And what was the result of that?
It was a positive UA for opiates.
All right. And before I go further, did you confront her or discuss the fact that she tested positive in August 26th of 2022 for methamphetamines?
Yes. Each time she tested positive, I did have a conversation with her about the positive test.
Did she admit that she was using in August of 2022?
She admitted that it was old use and that it was not current.
Did you discuss with her the UA drug screen in September that was positive?
Yes.
And what was her response to that?
That I believe that was the one that she admitted to smoking methamphetamines with her ex-husband with the other child present and did sign an acknowledgement form that I filed with the court on that date.
When she tested positive for opiates in October of 2022, what was her reasons for that?
She said that her back was hurting, so she got a narcotic painkiller from a friend, and she didn't know she couldn't take it. And so there was not a valid prescription.
Did you ask her to UA drug screen in November of 2022?
Yes, sir.
And on November 17th, did she screen?
She did, and it was a negative UA.
Did you ask her to UA drug screen on December the 6th of 2022?
I sure did.
And did she attend that drug screen?
No, sir. She failed to appear as directed.
Did you talk to her about the failure to appear being presumed a positive?
Yes, sir. I sure did.
Did she have an explanation as to why she didn't go?
No, sir.
Did you ask her to do a drug screen on December the 17th of 2022?
Yes, sir.
What was the result of that?
That was a negative UA.
Did you ask her to drug screen in January or on January the 13th of 2023?
Yes, sir.
What was the result of that?
Negative UA.
Did you ask her to do a hair follicle drug screen on January the 30th of 2023?
Yes, sir.
What was the result of that?
That was a refusal to test.
Was that refusal due to lack of sufficient body hair?
That is correct.
Had Miss Smith taken prior hair follicle drug screens?
Multiple times. Yes, sir.
Was she aware that she had to have enough hair to have it removed so they could screen for that?
That is correct.
As part of her service plan, she was asked to do a rational behavior training.
That is correct.
Has she done that?
She did not do RBT, but she did submit a certificate of completion for an RBET class, but not RBT.
Okay. Do you know what an RBET class is?
Yes, sir. It's rational behavior emotional therapy.
So it would be similar to the rational behavior training that Troy Timmons teaches in Amarillo?
It would be similar. I'm just not 100% sure what that type of course is.
Thank you. She didn't provide you with any details as to the course or what the components of the training that she received would be?
No, sir. I just received a certificate. I did have to Google what an REBT was.
Ms. Smith was asked to complete an anger control management class.
That's correct.
Has she completed that?
No, sir.
Has she complied or provided you with any type of certificate that would be a similar type of class?
No, sir.
Ms. Smith was asked to participate and complete a psychosocial assessment.
Yes, sir.
And did she complete that?
That was completed on August 30th of 2022.
Were there any additional recommendations made from that psychosocial?
They did request an OSAR and then obviously individual counseling, but that was already scheduled.
And she hasn't completed the OSAR yet?
No, sir.
She was ordered to participate in individual counseling, first with the Jennings Counseling Services. Did she go to counseling with Jennings Counseling Services?
She initiated those on October 28, 2022, completed 2 sessions, and they discharged her on January 4th due to non-compliance.
What in your opinion does non-compliance mean?
I was told it was no call, no shows.
Did she start going to other counseling?
Yes, sir. I got her in with Dirk Milam on January 21st, 2023.
Where is Dirk Milam located?
Amarillo, Texas.
And was she still residing in the Amarillo area in January of 2023?
Yes, sir.
Did she go to any of those?
She did go to a few, but she missed no call, no showed on February 4th and February 11th for Dirk.
Has she provided you with any counseling completion certificates from any classes that she may have taken that were not the ones that you set up?
No, sir. And I did discuss with Dirk Milam allowing those therapy sessions to go virtual once she moved in February. And then that's where it did set. He was willing to do virtual, but she never contacted him.
Ms. Smith was asked to maintain stable housing. Does she have a house that she lives in or residence she lives in now?
Now she does as of February 8th. She moved in with Menelik Calhoun.
And is that in Houston?
That is correct.
Prior to that, how many places did she live that you're aware of?
That I am aware of, there were 4 addresses provided to me.
She was asked to maintain contact with you. Has she provided you with phone numbers that you could maintain contact with her on?
We've had 8 different phone numbers since the start of this case. And so it's been very sporadic and hard to get a hold of her at times.
Does she contact you when her phone number changes, or do you have to reach out to her?
It depends. Sometimes she's contacted CASA. Sometimes she's texted me and not notified me who she was. So I've had to ask who it was, but she has contacted me each time.
She was asked to provide you with some sort of stable income?
That is correct.
Has she provided you with a job that she's working now?
She provided me with an offer letter from Strong Arm Security on April 25th, 2023 of a start date of April 24th, 2023. But as of filing the court report and yesterday, I had not received any pay stubs that have been requested multiple times.
Do you know if she's working at Strong Arm Security?
All I can testify to is I saw an offer letter.
Has Miss Smith had regular visitation with Bible?
Those have also been very sporadic.
How many in-person visits has she exercised with Bible?
I believe it was one.
Do you recall when that was?
Yes, sir. Let me look real quick. It was on January 11th, 2023. It was a 2-hour in-person visit in Lubbock, Texas that I monitored myself.
What was, first of all, Bible's reaction to Miss Smith?
He was very distant in the beginning. She continued to try to love on him, tell her who, like, play with him, tell her she loves him. Then he started coming around about the last 30 minutes. But they did interact and play, but he was distant.
Since then, has she had, well, first of all, prior to January, were there opportunities for her to exercise virtual visitation?
There was opportunities to exercise virtual, yes, sir.
And did Miss Smith exercise virtual visits on a regular basis prior to her in-person visit in January?
Very sporadic.
Did you observe any of those virtual visits?
I've actually been on every virtual visit except for 2 since she's been in Houston, but prior to that, I was on every one of them.
How long was her virtual visits?
They're about 30 minutes.
Was she allowed more time than that?
Yes. There was an hour, but now the virtuals are 1 hour long.
But did she ever spend the full hour on any of those virtual visits?
No, sir.
Now, to be honest, we're talking about a 2-year-old child, and it's hard to maintain attention of a 2-year-old child in person for an hour, more or less, on screen for an hour. Would you agree with me?
That is correct. It's very difficult.
Was there any issues that you observed when you were observing those virtual visits that occurred between Miss Smith and Bible?
No, sir. There was the only issues that we observed that we had to bring to her attention. She would get up and leave a few times, or she would get on another phone, or there was another phone that she would turn on a cartoon, specifically Yo Gabba Gabba, and wanted him to sit there and watch that in the visit.
Okay. Now, since she's been in Houston since February of 2023, have you attempted to provide additional visits for Miss Smith?
Yes, sir. She has her weekly virtuals, but I also set up an in-person visit at her request that she did not show up to.
Is she regularly making the virtual visits?
No, sir. Those are also sporadic.
She was ordered to provide you with notice if she was going to attend.
That is correct. 24 hours in advance.
And have there been times when she failed to give you proper notice?
That is correct.
On May 3rd, did she exercise a virtual visit?
So yes, that was the one that she confirmed on May 2nd, showed up on May 3rd, was on the call less than 10 minutes and said she had other things to do. So the visit was concluded.
Was that because she and Bible were not interacting, or was that just something, first of all, were they interacting during that period of time at 10 minutes?
I mean, yeah, she was a little late to the visit, but I mean, Bible was on the call and foster mom made sure he was in the picture.
When you set up the in-person meeting in March of 2023, did Miss Smith give you any reasons why she could not attend?
She gave me the reason that she lost her cell phone.
And then how was she communicating with you?
Through Menelik Calhoun's cell phone. She calls it her emergency contact phone.
Are you aware of the reasons that Bible was removed from Miss Smith's care?
Yes, sir.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not counseling would have been important to alleviate those reasons?
Can you restate that, please?
Yeah. Was counseling an important service for Miss Smith to work to alleviate some of the reasons for the child's removal?
Definitely.
Was an OSAR evaluation important in this case due to the history of substance abuse and the substance abuse that you observed?
Very much so.
Are there still concerns that Miss Smith is not totally being honest with us about her sobriety?
That is correct.
Child has been in the care of the department for more than 9 months.
That is correct.
The court ordered the services that we went over in a status hearing order.
That is correct.
Has Miss Smith complied with the provisions of that court order satisfactorily?
No, sir.
Was Miss Smith's actions that caused Bible to be removed from her care?
Yes.
What types of things have you done to try to help Miss Smith complete her court-ordered services?
I've met with her in person, went over the service plan multiple times, also met in person with her with CASA to help. So there were two of us helping explain it, and created her what I call a cheat sheet for each of her services. That was one sheet of paper that had all the providers on it with their contact information, emails, and addresses.
Would you agree with me that you have taken reasonable and necessary steps to help her complete her services?
I would agree with that.
And if she would have completed her service, would she have been able to have Bible returned to her?
If the service plan was completed, yes, that's always the goal.
Would you agree with me that Ms. Smith has not regularly visited and maintained a significant contact with Bible?
That is correct. The bonding just is not there.
Has she provided or demonstrated an ability to provide a safe environment for her child?
I can't attest to that. I've not seen her home. She has not sent me pictures, so I cannot attest what environment she is living in Houston, Texas.
Have you had courtesy workers that have gone out and visited with her at the home?
Courtesy workers have visited with her at the office because of the fact that our goal in this case is not reunification, so they did not go out to the home.
What courtesy workers have been involved in this case?
First, it was Talisha Griffith, and then Mondrea Robertson, and then next was Montrea, and I'm unsure of her last name.
Okay. And those people have been involved since Ms. Smith moved to Houston?
That is correct.
And do they communicate with you when they make contact with Ms. Smith?
So Talisha and Mondrea were great about contact with me from the beginning, yes.
Do you have an opinion as to what is in the best interest of Bible today?
Yes, sir, I do.
What's that opinion?
That the department be made permanent managing conservator so that we can continue to protect Bible.
Are you asking that Ms. Smith's parental rights be terminated?
That is correct.
We served Mr. Roper through publication because we didn't have a good address for him, correct?
That's correct.
Has he made any attempts to notify you or contact you?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
Are you asking that his parental rights also be terminated at this time?
Yes, sir.
If he's not the father, and we don't know because he didn't follow our orders, are you asking for any unknown father to also have their parental rights terminated?
Yes, sir.
And again, no one stepped forward and claimed to be the father to this child?
That's correct.
I'll ask witness.
Your Honor, may I again interrupt? And I mean, Ms. Smith is talking to someone in the room. I've observed it several times. Several people in the hearing have observed it several times, and I insist on knowing who is in the room with her.
Right, Ms. Smith, who are you talking to?
Somebody in the room with me. This is an empty room. There's a dog.
But who-
There's an empty room.
My question is, who are you talking with?
Nobody. No.
Well, she's been picking up the other phone and she's been observed talking, and I mean,
No, I wiped my head on my sleeve.
Well, I'm going to caution you one more time. You don't need to be talking to anybody else during this proceeding, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Or not, but let's talk about the parenting certificate in particular, which for identification purposes, I think I've sent as respondent Smith's Exhibit C. It says certificate of completion, parenting class, putting kids first. Is that the parenting certificate you were referring to?
Yes, and I'm currently looking at it as well.
Okay. And that looks like it was registered on 5/18 and completed on 5/19. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I was looking through the service plan that Ms. Smith signed, and it stated alternate on page 4 of 14, if you want to know exactly where I was looking, and it said parenting classes as part of that, but it did not specify in that what specific parenting class or course was required. Would you agree with me?
Are you talking about on my service plan?
Yes, ma'am.
It is specifically stated a 10-week course on there. It is very in-depth with my wording.
Okay. Do you know what page that would be on? Because I was looking on page 4 of 14.
Let me pull that up for you right now.
Absolutely. But for our purposes, what specifically does it state?
Sorry, my computer moved. I'm getting
okay.
back to it. Tashetta will actively participate in and complete parenting classes. Tashetta will participate in a class that teaches her parenting skills with appropriate for the ages of her children. Tashetta will have her evaluation in first class completed within 30 days of receiving this plan. Tashetta will be responsible for attending 4 one-day classes if she does not take a 10-week class. Tashetta will exhibit proper parenting skills in all of her interactions with her children. Tashetta will be responsible for any payments regarding her parenting class. And that is on page 6 of 14.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Now, in regards to the employment, you did get information that she was going to be employed at Strong Arm Security. Is that correct?
All I can testify to is an offer letter that I received. That was a picture of an email.
Do you recall receiving any documentation? It would have been yesterday about an April 27, 2023 letter confirming that employment. Did you ever get that?
The only thing I saw yesterday was a screenshot of her clock ins, but that still does not tell me or verify employment.
Okay, and I'll deal with that later in the hearing. But to your knowledge, she had informed you she was employed.
By the offer letter, that's all I've received.
Okay. Now, in regards to housing, again, you testified that you don't know what her housing situation is because of the department's goals. Is that correct?
I received a lease agreement 2 days ago, and I've also seen a Facebook post where she's standing in front of a house. It looks like a brick house, but that's all I can say I've seen.
Okay, fair enough. Now, the last UA she took was negative. Is that correct?
I would have to go back to my UA screen. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. I believe that's what you testified to, but take a look.
Yes, sir. What date were you saying?
Let me pull that. Now you're making me pull stuff up. I believe the 3/15/2023 was the last negative UA. I believe that's on page 9 of 18 of the court report.
That was the last one that she appeared to. I tried to get 3 after that, but that was the last she appeared.
Okay. In regards to the visits, when she did have visits, they went okay. Is that fair enough to say? With the child?
The child is 2 years old. They were rough in the beginning. Then we started telling her, read books to him, stuff like that. She started reading books to him. There was one point where I believe she was singing a song maybe, but also calling him names that she had called him from birth. So he would engage for a couple of minutes and then he would disengage, but he is 2.
Yeah, virtual visits and even physical visits are very hard for a 2-year-old. I mean, they're just busy.
Virtual is definitely hard.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in regards to contact with the department, has she maintained, I understand she's had various numbers and everything, has she maintained contact with the department throughout this case?
I would have to say for the most part.
Okay. Does she, and I'm just asking, does she appear at this point, based upon that she's more stable now than when this case started?
I can't testify to that due to not receiving employment verification, not seeing the home, also not knowing the guy that she is residing with either.
Okay. And now, you obviously, this is a long way from Houston, and you engaged other workers that work for the department to go help with this case. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I sure did.
Do you think those workers might have more testimony or more knowledge about what's been going down in Houston than you might?
Most likely not. I have been in very close contact with each and every one of them.
Okay. Have they been in the home?
No, sir.
Okay. Have they spoken to the gentleman that Tashita is living with?
I have spoke with them, and I believe Mondrea Robertson also met with him, saw him in person at a face-to-face visit with Tashetta.
Okay. Okay. You were not in that visit?
I was in the visit with Tashetta. The interaction with Menelik happened in the parking lot, to my knowledge.
Okay. Now, you stated that bonding has not occurred between Tashita and Bible. What are you basing, what counselor or what therapist has told you that?
Just from experience.
Are you a licensed professional counselor?
No, sir, but
Are you a therapist?
No, sir.
Okay. That's just your lay opinion. Is that correct?
That is my professional opinion. Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anything at this point that you think that Tashita could do at this point that would change your opinion in regards to termination?
No, sir.
I'll pass the witness.
I believe, Ms. McIntyre, I was mistaken with, you heard the questions I asked of Mr. Martinez during his testimony?
Yes, sir.
I believe I should have directed those questions of you. Is that correct?
Um,
You were the worker who I received the email from stating that you had been in contact with Mr. Roper and had a phone number for him?
That's correct. I reached out to him through Facebook.
Okay, and you provided that phone number to me, but had no other contact information. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I believe in your email, you indicated that he initially said that if it turned out that the paternity test showed he was the father, he wanted very much to be in the child's life, but then subsequently he kind of dropped out of the picture and had no further response from him.
Yes, during that initial phone call, he did say that.
And then I failed to have any responses from my efforts as well. And did you ever hear from him again?
No, sir.
And failed to get any other contact information for him. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Ronho?
Ms. Smith mentioned anyone else who may be the father of the child?
She did.
Who did she mention?
I believe the last name was Dominguez.
And did St. Francis make any efforts to locate Mr. Dominguez?
Yes, ma'am. With the information she gave me, which was very sporadic, I attempted to look through Facebook. I asked Ms. Tashetta multiple times the information, and we were never able to get a full understanding of who he was to be able to search more.
Did Ms. Smith ever provide a potential location for him?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. McIntyre, what is your knowledge of Tashida's transportation availability?
I've seen her transportation, the car she owns in person at multiple visits, and then she has told me about her transportation with Mentalist.
Okay. Is her car appropriate?
Her car was in the shop multiple times during the deal. I would say it's appropriate, but I was never in it to be able to testify to that.
Okay, so are you aware of whether it has a car seat or not?
I am not aware of that.
Okay. I want to ask you about a couple of different things that I wrote down here. What date did you receive, or let me start over. What is the date of the offer letter from Strong Arm Security for employment?
Let me pull that up. I apologize.
That's okay.
I received it on April 25th, and it states that her official start date was April 24th.
Have you had opportunity in this case to look at the exhibits that have been submitted?
Yes, ma'am, for the most part.
Okay. Are you familiar with the exhibit employment verification letter from Strong Arm Security?
That would be, I believe we went with letters. And so I think
letters.
Yeah, we went with letters this time. So that would be exhibit A.
A. Okay. Can you, have you seen exhibit A, Ms. McIntyre?
It was at the employment verification letter?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you agree with me that that letter is dated April 27th of 2023?
Yes.
And the email that you received with an offer of employment, you just received that on 4/25, 2 days prior to the date of this letter, correct?
Hang on, we've lost Miss Taylor.
Uh-oh.
Hold on, just let's wait for just a minute.
The last thing I got, you said, so are you aware of whether it has a car seat or not? That's the last thing I got.
Okay, I have my notes. I could back up and we can go over you only missed a couple of questions.
Yeah, let's do back up and then Ms. Barfield, that's fine. And then we're going to talk about here in a minute about a short lunch break, but okay.
Okay, Ms. McIntyre, I'm going to take just a quick break. We're going to get back on the record now, and I'm going to take a quick break from asking you questions, and I'm going to ask Mr. Barfield if he would like to take this opportunity to go ahead and enter his exhibits, because I'd like to ask you some questions about those exhibits that he has supplied.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to offer Respondent Smith's Exhibit A for it's an employment verification from Strong Arm Security dated April 27th, 2023. Exhibit B is a residential lease agreement, which has also been testified to having been received. Exhibit C, I believe, gotta get through the lease agreement here, is the certificate of completion of a parenting class, which I believe we've had some testimony on as well. Exhibit D is a REBT certificate that I believe has been received by the department and has also been testified to in this hearing. And Exhibit E, which are some what I'm going to refer to as pay stubs that I hope everybody's received at this particular point. And at this time, I'd offer those since we've testified to some of them and offer them at this time so that we're not talking about, exhibits not in evidence.
Judge, for the record, the department would object to each of those as hearsay exhibits. And additionally, I can't verify that the certificate of parenting came from an actual parenting class. I can't verify that the REBT came from an actual REBT class. So I don't have any way to verify any of those things. So I'm going to object to each of the exhibits as hearsay.
Mr. Barfield, are you offering these to prove the truth of the matter asserted in the document?
Well, I'm offering them that my client was required pursuant to a service plan to provide the department with documentation, and she has done that, which has now been objected to by the department. So in that regard, I mean, I can question my client further about the services for the purposes of the record. We're talking about documents that have not been entered. And so I'm really just offering them at this time to clarify what we're actually talking about so that everybody's on the same page and so that the record's clear. So I'd ask them to be entered at this time for the limited purpose of clarification of the record and non-confusion for any appellate purposes.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection. I will just clarify, Mr. Harvey, like all things, the court can weigh those things. There can certainly be further testimony that might come in about, what these courses supposedly involved. And, so I'm going to go ahead and admit respondents exhibits A, B, C, D, and E. Whether we take it at all face value or whether we get more information about them, I think that can be developed.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, so Tasia, I had finished asking you about whether the car was appropriate and whether it had a car seat. Do you recall?
I do not recall if there was a car seat.
Okay. And then I had moved on to ask you some questions about the employment that's been reported to you. Did you receive an email with an offer letter of employment?
Yes, I did.
And that email you said you received on 4/25?
That's correct.
Okay. Yes. And that email indicated a start date of 4/24 the prior day, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the employment would have began 4/24. And is it your understanding whether she is still currently employed there or not?
I am unsure.
Okay. Is the letter that you received provided by Brandy Haygood? The exhibit that you're looking at, is it provided from Strong Arm Security by a Brandy Haygood?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know whether or not Ms. Smith has any type of personal relationship with the Haygoods?
I've never heard that name in this case.
Okay. And on that, I'm sorry, I'm getting back to the exhibit. On that letter that we're looking at, which is the exhibit that Mr. Barfield just entered, and I believe he said it was D, but correct me if I'm wrong. Would you agree with me that letter says that down near the bottom of the second paragraph that she's very reliable? Do you agree with that?
I am reading that right now. Yes.
Okay. You see what I'm talking about? It says she's very reliable, correct?
That's correct.
Record, that would be A, just to clarify.
A. Thank you, Brooks. So letter A says she's very reliable, and the letter is dated what date?
The 27th of April.
Okay. And we just agreed that she had a start date of the 24th, correct?
That's correct.
So would you agree with me then that it stands to reason through our layman reading of the letter that letter is only attesting to basically 3 days of employment? And if it's written on the 27th, possibly 2.5 days?
According to the dates, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is 2.5 days of reliable employment enough for you to consider that consistently and reliably employed for the purposes of this case?
No, ma'am. I've asked for 6 months.
Okay. And is 6 months employment standard in a case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you have any reason to suspect that Strong Arm Security or their employees would provide false information?
I don't believe that I can testify to that. I don't know.
Okay. You have nothing to offer in that regard, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Let me move on to the online parenting class. You supplied proof of the completion of services to me at my request. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you sent me a certificate that is identical to the one in Mr. Barfield's exhibits. Would you agree with that?
That is correct. Okay.
And are you familiar with this provider of parenting classes?
No, ma'am.
Okay. When you reviewed the certificate and the website associated with this provider, would you agree with me that this provider seems to be geared towards statutorily driven parenting classes?
That's correct. And co-parenting and things like that.
Okay. Is the parenting class in this case driven by a statute or is it driven by your service plan?
by my service plan that was made in order of the court.
Okay. So did you, in fact, though, make an effort to review the certificate and the website and give credit if you were able to give credit for this course?
That is correct. I did search it once I received the certificate.
And after reviewing the information from the provider and the website, do you believe that this online parenting class is appropriate as a substitution for what you requested?
I do not believe it meets the requirements.
Okay. In fact, would you agree with me that when you review this provider's online website, that they specifically advertise that they will provide you a quick certificate for short-term impending court dates?
That is correct.
And this class is $39.95. Would you agree with me on that?
I don't know the exact price, but I do know it was straight out of pocket.
Okay. You did not review that information. Okay.
I did not go that far.
Okay. But there is no mention, did you find in your review of the website any mention of CPS requirements or suitability of this course?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you find the same language in the areas to be geared more towards family law and custody cases where it is a requirement of the court to take a parenting class for that type of case?
That is correct.
Okay. Is this that type of case?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I want to go on to the next topic of the visitation. Was it, you said there was one in-person visit on January 11th of 2023 in Lubbock. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And did you witness Ms. Smith with more than one cell phone in this visit?
Not at this visit, but other visits I did.
Okay. Have you requested that Ms. Smith provides you with all numbers that she can be reached at?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had any conversations regarding the fact that there's multiple cell phones at play on some days in this case where she is concerned?
So I've just continued to ask her, is this the only number I can contact you at? Are you sure? And she says, yes, this is my emergency contact. And that emergency contact does date back to before she moved to a mental at Calhoun.
Okay. And so do you have a contact phone number for Mr. Calhoun?
It is the same one as her emergency contact.
Okay. So a number that she had prior to moving with Mr. Calhoun is now being given to you as Mr. Calhoun's personal phone number. Is that correct?
So Mr. Calhoun's number is now her emergency contact. She does not have her own, according to the reports to me.
Okay. So it actually would have been to her benefit if she had her own cell phone. Is that correct?
I would say so.
But you've questioned that multiple times and been given no proof of her having her own device for communication and use.
That's correct.
So absent Mr. Calhoun's involvement, she'll have no cell phone that you can contact her on it at this time, correct?
Not at this time.
Okay. I want to go into the issues that involved removal. What are the safety issues at play in your opinion when you received assignment to this case?
When I received assignment to this case is no safety equipment in the vehicle for a 2-year-old child,
Okay.
being arrested for a criminal charge of unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, as well as the child testing positive for cocaine.
Okay. So the child has been drug tested in this case, correct?
That is correct.
And was that after you became involved?
It was during the investigation stage, but we received the results after I was involved.
Okay. And so once those results were a part of the file, that became a part of your safety issues in this case, correct?
Definitely.
Okay. And you've had some clean UAs provided, negative UAs provided by Ms. Smith, correct?
That's correct.
Have you ever had a negative hair follicle provided in this case by Ms. Smith?
I don't believe so. No, ma'am.
Okay. Has the child now begun testing negative for illegal substances, or has the child been retested?
We have not retested him.
As far as mitigating the reasons for removal, do you believe that Tashida Smith has adequately remedied your concerns for drug use in this case?
No, ma'am.
And what are your reasons to support that belief?
Failing, obviously positive drug screens that I've received, but also failing to appear as directed since March 15th.
Okay. And is it standard in your field of work to want to see 6 months of sobriety in a parent before you consider reunification able to be started?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at the beginning of this case, reunification was your goal, correct?
That's correct.
That has since changed. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And when did that goal change occur?
I do not remember the exact date, but it was right around the time that visits were suspended.
Okay. And part of the reunification would also be appropriate transportation, correct?
That's correct.
And it would also be suitable housing for the child, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so I want to go to the exhibit that is the lease agreement that was provided in this case. Do you have that exhibit?
I'm pulling it up now.
Okay, I got to pull it up too. Give me a second. And it appears to be Exhibit B, lease agreement. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is a lease agreement that was just entered into May 16th of this year. Would you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
And who is the tenant?
The tenants would be Menelik Calhoun and Tashetta Smith.
Okay. And then who is the landlord?
Carnell Calhoun.
Do you know who Carnell Calhoun is?
I do not.
Possibly someone related to Menelik Calhoun. Would you agree with me? Possibly?
Yes.
Okay. And the premises is the Plum Lake. I don't want to say the whole address since we may be on YouTube, but we're talking about a Plum Lake address in Houston, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And it's a furnished residence, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And this is a 2-year lease.
Yes, ma'am.
From May 16th, 2023 to the same date, 2025. And the rent for this is $250 per month. Would you agree that's what's highlighted there in red?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so, I'm not sure what the agreement is for 12,000. It doesn't say dollars, but can you just read that into the record, that payment of rent, that first line all the way to the end of the red highlighting?
And Ms. McIntyre, read it a little bit slower. For the court reporter.
Yes, ma'am. The total rent for the term of this agreement is $12,000, payable at a rate of $250 per week in advance. And if the rent is paid on the 1st by 7 p.m., a discount of $0 per month will be deducted. Total rent for this unit will be $250 per month if paid by the 1st of each month by 7 p.m.
Okay, so this appears to be a formal lease that was entered into by someone who's been a landlord before, right? I would draw that question. You may not know.
Objection, speculation.
I would do it. Sorry. This lease appears to just be a standard lease like any you've seen before. Would you agree? You're not an expert on leases.
No, ma'am, but yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. But you could do the math with me, I'm sure. And 250 times a 2-year term is not $12,000, is it?
No, ma'am, it's not.
It's only $6,000, right?
That's correct.
So there's something wrong there with this lease that makes it inaccurate, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And would you agree with me that down on deposits this is a great lease because we also got 0 security deposit and 0 for parking, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But would you agree with me that this says the premises will be occupied by no more than 4 people?
That is correct.
Do you have any information as to who plans to reside with Tashetta Smith if the child were to be returned to her?
All she has notified me of is herself, Menelik, Bible, if that case happens. And then Menelik does have a 14-year-old son that I'm not sure if he resides with them or not.
Okay. Has your courtesy worker seen this property?
Not to my knowledge.
So you don't know the size or condition of this property personally?
I don't personally. There was an active investigation recently, and that investigator did call me and let me know what that home looked like.
This home in this lease?
Yes, ma'am.
Did the investigator, disregard. Did you leave the conversation with the investigator with any concerns?
Just that there was an open investigation.
Okay. So you're concerned that there is some type of history of investigation here that is currently open and not resolved?
I'm unsure if it's resolved. I have not been notified.
Okay. Have you been provided with any receipts or anything from this lease?
No, ma'am.
No canceled check regarding the payment of either $6,000, $12,000, or the initial month's rent of $250?
No, ma'am.
Okay. This lease that's provided as an exhibit is not signed by Mr. Calhoun, correct?
Which Mr. Calhoun are you referring to on that?
Well, I don't see a signature from either one, but you can correct me if I'm seeing wrong.
I do not. I just see Tashetta Smith's signature on May 19th, 2023.
Okay. And for some reason, there's a notary on this lease. Do you see that?
I do see that.
Okay. But we don't have an active lease here that's signed by anybody, we can tell that you don't see anybody I'm not seeing, correct? You only see Tashida, and that's all I see, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And was this sent to you? Did you have this prior to today, or is this as an exhibit the first time you're seeing it?
No, ma'am. Tashetta did email it to me, and I forwarded it to the parties.
What date was it emailed to you?
Let me double check in my email for that. I don't want to.
Okay.
It would be May 19th.
Okay. So it was actually signed and emailed to you 3 days after it took effect, correct?
That's what it looks like.
Okay. All right. So best we can tell, it was in effect the 16th. It was signed 3 days later by at least Tashida. The rent amount is inaccurate. No deposits were paid, and possibly 4 people are going to live here. Would you agree that that was your understanding of the lease when you received it, or do you disagree with me?
That was my understanding, as well as the payments were supposed to be mailed to the exact address where they're residing.
Okay. So is it possible, under your assessment, just your layman's assessment, maybe this is a rental agreement for one room in a house where other people are going to live as well, maybe?
I mean, I've never seen a whole house for $250 a month.
I'm going to object this to speculation.
Okay.
Sustained.
And we'll move on from that item. I want to ask you about the RBT certificate. Can you go to that exhibit, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you familiar with these types of certificates related to RBT?
The RBT, yes.
Okay. What is RBT? Even though this is not that certificate, what is RBT?
Rational behavior therapy.
Okay. And is that part of the service plan?
That is correct.
And what does that entail under your service plan?
And that she needed to complete that through Troy Timmons to address cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay. How long is RBT that is normally done under your service plan? Is that a battery of classes or one day, or how does that work?
It is typically 1 day.
Okay. How is it, a whole day or a half day?
I'm not sure how Troy is doing it, but I don't believe it's any more than 1 day.
Okay. And are there certain things that Mr. Timmons trains parents on who are required to do this under the CPS service plan?
I've never attended that course. I just know what he offers.
Okay. Are you familiar with REBT?
I was not until I received the certificate.
Okay. Because this certificate is for actually REBT. Would you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you received this as a potential completion for RBT, did you look into this certificate?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you assess the certificate for adequacy in giving credit for RBT?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this the same or like course?
They're very close, but not the same.
Okay. Are you willing to give credit for this course, or willing or able to give credit for this course to cover the service plan's requirement of RBT?
That is something I believe needs to be discussed with my attorney, because I'm unsure on that. I'm not a professional on what the difference in RBT is and RBET.
Okay. And you just got this sometime after May 21st, obviously, because it's dated May 21st, correct?
That is correct. I got it over the weekend, and I've unable to discuss that with anybody.
Okay. So you've had very little time to even approve this certificate, other than to look at what you could find on the internet to try to assess it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so you cannot, can you testify today that this is an RBT allowable course or certificate?
I cannot.
Okay. You just don't know yet, correct?
I'm 100% unsure without consulting with my attorney. Was
this class pre-approved by you for credit for the RBT requirement in the safety plan, or I'm the service plan? Sorry.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then are you familiar with children who are experiencing attachment disorders through your course of employment?
Not in a professional matter. I've just witnessed it in this case.
Okay. And you're not an expert on attachment disorder, correct?
Definitely not.
Are you, through your course of employment, simply able to raise concerns if you see concerning behaviors?
That is correct.
Do you have any concerns in this case regarding attachment?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel that any services are warranted in regard to the child's attachment?
I believe the therapy we have him in, as well as the therapy with Tashetta and parenting.
Okay. During your managing of this case, did you have any reason to be in touch with the bond company that Tashetta worked with?
I was not in contact with the bond company, but I did discuss that on multiple occasions with Tashetta so that she could see where that case was standing at in Armstrong.
Okay. Did Tashetta ever communicate to you whether or not she had bond company approval to return to Houston or to move to Houston?
No, ma'am. When I asked her that, she said that she didn't need to check in with them.
Okay. So you did question whether the bond company had authorized the move directly to Tashetta?
On that case, as well as the Dallas County case, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And she indicated to you that she did not need that?
That's correct.
Okay. Was it your understanding then that that wasn't done?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you took from that conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you ever had any opportunity to have conversations with Mr. Haygood, the owner of Strong Arm Security?
No, ma'am, never heard the name.
So once you received the employment letters for Strong Arm Security, did you reach out to verify employment as I did?
I reached out just through Tashetta to get those pay stubs and because I wanted to see those before I reached out.
Okay. Let's go to that last exhibit then, the pay stubs, which are the additional exhibit. Is it F? Are these the pay stubs you received?
Yes, ma'am, just now during the exhibits.
Okay, and they go through the 24th. The pay date is the 24th and they're paid through the 21st, correct?
Start date April 24th through May 21st, yes.
Okay. You see that third pay stub? Did Tashetta tell you anything about why that says Kimberly next to each of those pay dates on that week of 5/4 through 5/10?
No, ma'am, that was a screenshot I previously referred to of her clock-ins. I'm unsure why it says Kimberly.
Okay. Because up at the top left, it says Tashetta, correct? 5/4 to 5/17.
Yes, ma'am.
But the 5/4 up through the 5/10 dates say they're for a Kimberly, correct?
That is correct.
And then 5/11 through 5/15 show no hours. Would you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
But then when you go to the pay stub for that time period, it's paid her for 60 hours. Would you agree with me there?
Yes, ma'am.
So the clock-in timesheet at a minimum does not match the payroll stub. Would you agree with me?
That is correct.
These are for 2 weeks at 60 hours, correct?
That is what I'm looking at.
Okay. And is it your general expectation that a parent will show 6 months of consistent and dependable employment in a general CPS case that you supervise?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you agree with me that these pay stubs do not show 6 weeks of or 6 months of continuous employment?
That's correct.
And that if you look at these pay stubs and contrast them with the letter of employment that you received from Brandy Haygood, that the letter only covered 2.5 of these days on these pay stubs.
That is correct.
Okay. Ma'am, do you, after reviewing the exhibits and proof of and certificates that have been presented, do you still have concerns regarding the services that they attest to?
That is correct.
But you didn't have time based on when they were turned in to check any further than you have. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you make a good faith effort to try to verify these items once you received them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Okay, Mr. Albee.
Thank you. Ms. McIntyre, are you asking that the department be named as permanent managing conservator of this child if parents' parental rights are terminated?
Yes, sir.
You believe that's in the child's best interest?
Yes, sir.
Can you work with foster family to work towards possible adoption if that becomes necessity?
Definitely.
Concerning Miss Smith, she's told us that she's married the gentleman that she's living with now. Is that correct?
She did not report to me that she was married. No, sir.
Has she provided you with information so that you can run background checks, criminal checks for this gentleman?
She provided me with his name and information like his address before she moved there. But I was able to find him in the impact system.
Has he worked any services with the thought that he needs to be prepared for this child to come into his home?
No, sir.
Have you talked with Smith about possible services that he could work?
I have not spoke with her about that. No.
But that would be something that would be important before we return this child to her.
Definitely, if he's a party to the case, yes.
When you got information, what's the gentleman's name again? And I apologize, I'm terrible with names.
I believe it's Menelik Calhoun.
And did you run a background check on Mr. Calhoun? Was there any criminal issues?
I did run a background check and there were criminal, but nothing immediate alarming for Family Protective Court.
And was there any CPS history?
Yes, sir.
Was that in Houston?
That is correct.
Is that with him as a father?
Yes.
So for sure, we would want him to work services to be able to alleviate whatever concerns may have occurred in the past.
Yes, sir.
I'll pass with you, Sharon.
Okay, Mr. Barfield.
Ma'am, the CPS history on Mr. Calhoun, did it indicate any terminations or removal of children by the department?
There were some founded, but I cannot attest to termination. I was not part of those cases.
All right. Now, Mr. Calhoun was not ordered to work services by this court, obviously. Is that correct?
He is not a party to the case currently.
No further questions.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
No question, John.
All right, and Ms. Naranjo.
No questions,
Call
Your Honor.
Felicia Griffith.
Okay, Ms. Griffith, I believe you were also previously sworn. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So are you familiar then with Tashada Smith?
Yes, sir.
And as a courtesy worker, what are your duties, if any, concerning a parent in a case like this?
So in this case, because it was a privatized agency, I did not set up services for the client, but I am required to just make sure that I'm meeting with the client monthly, as well as making sure that any services that were set up for them are being followed, and just any updates that are needed, providing those updates to the client as well as the caseworker.
Did you have an opportunity to talk to Tashada Smith in February of 2023?
We talked on the phone, I believe it was once. Otherwise, I was pretty much having text communication with the primary caseworker, and I did have maybe 2 or 3 responses from Mrs. Tashada.
And did you attempt to make face-to-face contact with her?
Yes, sir.
And and how did you attempt to do that?
So I was assigned the case on February the 10th. And when I was assigned, I did leave a voicemail. I also did a text message. We had a text group with me, Tashada, and the primary worker. And that was just so everybody could be on the same page and we can all see all communication. I wasn't getting a response from Mrs. Smith. I think the only time I did get a response was after a court hearing that was held.
And did you ever make any face-to-face contact with her?
No, after there was a court hearing, she did agree to meet with me, but that meeting did not happen. And like I said, I was only on that case for that month of February. So after that, I did not have any more contact with Mrs. Smith.
In the attempt to make face-to-face contact with her, were you doing that at her house or at some other place?
No, so typically when I first meet with clients, I try to meet with them at the office. And also because at the time that I got the case, reunification wasn't the goal. So at that time, I did not go to the house as well. So we were going to meet at my office at Monworth.
And Ms. Smith, did you actually make an appointment for Ms. Smith to appear?
Yes, I did. I wanted to meet with her on the 16th of February at my office. I believe the time was like 9 o'clock. And then I sent her a message again, just asking her, could she meet with me at 11:30? But I never got a response and we never even got the opportunity to meet.
So you didn't have any face-to-face contact with her and you weren't able to visit with her about the services that she was working or not working and what she was doing for her child.
That is correct.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. And I apologize for us holding you up for such a short period of time, but I need to get that information in. So I'll pass witness.
Okay. All right, and Mr. Barfield?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Taylor?
No question, John.
And Ms. Naranjo?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Grant?
No questions, Judge.
All right, then, Mr. Alvey, anything further of this witness?
No, Your Honor. May she be excused, please?
I certainly hope so. She's been very patient with us today.
No objection.
No objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Mondrea Robertson. And when were you involved in the case?
I initially reached out to my first response to Ms. Smith was back on February 28th via text message that also included the caseworker, Ms. McIntyre, as well. Any communications that I do with parents, so I always loop in the primary worker so that there's no miscommunication. I introduced myself, let her know I'd be the new worker, and arranged a meeting for her on, I believe it was March the 2nd. And she agreed to meet with me at that time.
Did she actually meet with you on March the 2nd?
Yes, she did.
And where was that meeting at?
At my office on Monworth.
And what types of things did you discuss with her at that meeting?
Well, I greeted her in the lobby and advised her that her fiance would not be allowed back for the meeting because he was not a part of the case. And then at that time, once we made it to the office, I let her know that I asked for permission to FaceTime her primary worker so she could be included with the visit. She was somewhat agitated, but she allowed the call. And at that time, Ms. McIntyre and myself went over the services that was needed for Ms. Smith.
You said she was agitated. Why was she agitated with you?
Because she didn't. I got the impression that she did not want to talk with Ms. McIntyre.
Do you recall the services that you discussed with her that she needed to complete in March?
Yes, it was the individual counseling. Miss McIntyre gave her the information again for, I can't remember the gentleman's name, I'm sorry, but gave her that information again and told her she needed to reach out to him. He was willing to continue services with her virtually. She needed to continue with the parent with visitations because she hadn't been shown up for visitations, and then she needed to continue to submit for drug testing.
After that March meeting, did you have any further contact with Ms. Smith?
Yes, I reached out to Ms. Smith several times in the beginning of April to schedule a visit for April prior to me switching to another position, but I never heard back from her.
Did you at any time ever go to her home?
No, I did not.
Is it policy to make contact, have your conversations, get everything going at your office as opposed to the home?
Yes, because this was my initial visit with her, and the uncertainty of just the case itself. I typically meet with my clients at the office first, and then from there we transition to the home.
And because Ms. Smith didn't maintain regular contact with you, it was difficult to get to a point where you would felt safe going to her home?
That is correct.
How long were you on the case, Ms. Robertson?
Just shy of 2 months.
And when you started the first part of March, so that would have been towards the end of April?
Yes, the case was transitioned over to the new worker, Montre Harris.
And during that time, were you provided with any information that Ms. Smith was complying with the services that she was requested to be working?
From the conversation that I had with her, we discussed the visitations and her showing up for the visitations via virtual and giving the 24-hour notice. At that time, she explained to me that it was hard for her to make that contact because she was sleeping. I made some suggestions to her about setting her alarm, having her fiance remind her anything she could to give that notice so that way she can show up for the visit.
Would you agree with me that you were taking reasonable steps to make sure that Ms. Smith would be able to comply with the court-ordered services?
Yes.
And that those services were necessary for the return of her child?
Yes, that was discussed with her as well.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Barfield?
You do need to call your case manager at TCP and make arrangements to go back in and see them, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I promise I will.
Okay, we'll get looks, man.
Thank y'all.
I didn't hear if the witness had been passed.
Yes, to you.
Okay. I don't have any questions, Joe.
All right, Mr. Taylor?
No question, John.
Ms. Naranjo?
Ms. Robertson, did Ms. Smith ever mention to you about any other father other than Mr. Roper?
No, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Grant?
No questions, Judge.
I'll rest, Your Honor.
Good. All right, Mr. Barfield.
I'd call my client, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Smith, you're going to need to unmute your device.
And currently, where do you reside?
10605.
Okay. And who resides at that address with you?
Me, my fiance, and his brother.
Okay. And you've been in the hearing this entire time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Currently, did you hear testimony regarding your living situation?
Yes, sir.
And you heard did you hear testimony about your lease?
Yes, sir.
What is your living explain to the court the type of residence you live in and how many bedrooms, and please just describe that for the court.
Yes, sir. I live in a 3-bedroom home. His my fiance's brother also lives with us in the home, so everybody pays for their own room. It's $250 a week. We live in the Hastings Green residential area off of F 1960.
Is this lease agreement that you signed? Who is your landlord?
Minnie father is the landlord. He owns the house. He has made some changes to the pricing for the things that wasn't like we pay $250 a week every week. So however that amount for the $12,000 that is one of the things that we have discussed with the landlord, and he's making some changes to the lease.
Okay, but it's family?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how long have you been engaged to Mr. Calhoun?
About 3 months.
Okay. And I heard you refer to him as your husband. You're not actually married yet.
No, we are not actually married yet.
Okay. Now let's talk about what I'm going to go through these exhibits a little bit in order, if you don't mind. Okay.
Yes.
Exhibit A, I'm talking about the employment verification. Are you familiar with that document?
Yes, sir.
Is that a document that you obtained?
That is a document that was sent to me from Ms. Haygood for employment verification. Yes, sir.
Okay. How did Ms. Haygood know to send you that document?
I requested it from her
Okay. So why did you request that document?
because of the requirements of the family plan.
Okay. And do you work for Strong Arm Security?
Yes, sir.
How long have you worked there?
Since April 24th.
Okay. Of this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what do you do for Strong Arm Security?
I patrol a truck yard.
And what does that mean?
They have a freight solution truck yard where the drivers, they park their 18-wheelers and they leave them there overnight. So my shift is from 7 at night to 7 in the morning.
Okay. And do you like that job?
Yes, sir.
Do you plan on staying at that job?
Yes, moving up, yes.
And I believe the letter indicated, do you make $15 per hour?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in regards to this letter, have you had an opportunity to read the letter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have, Brandy Haygood is the chief operating officer. Is that correct?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Now, in regards to the parenting class.
Yes, sir.
And for the record, there's a certificate that you sent to a certificate of completion referred to as Exhibit C. Did you send that certificate in to the department?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it shows that you took this course and completed it on May 19th of 2023.
Yes, I registered on the 18th, completed it by the 19th. It was a 24-hour class. It took me about 16 hours, 17 with bathroom breaks.
Okay. And excuse me, Judge, I'm hearing some background noise is anybody else hearing this?
It sounds like it's coming from you.
There is nothing on in my room. Oh, well, I'll just keep going on.
I don't know because
Okay. Tashita, do you have any other devices or any TV or radio on or anything?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just keep going on.
Tashita, could you maybe mute yourself and see if that resolves it?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's right. That's what was doing it. Okay. What we're going to do is then, Tashita, I'm going to ask you a question, then unmute and answer. Okay. Ma'am, in the parenting course, how did you find out about the parenting course?
Through the online system of parenting classes that are court approved and Texas certified.
Okay. And did you believe you were completing the parenting course in compliance with the court order?
Yes.
Okay. Now you've heard some testimony that the department doesn't recognize this parenting class. Were you aware of that?
No, sir.
Okay. Were you making a legitimate attempt to comply with the parenting course?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, did you learn anything from completing the parenting course?
Yes.
What did you learn?
I've learned that the healthy benefits of disciplining your kids, 4 different styles of parenting your kids, the purpose of what is it called? Consequences of actions is the purpose of teaching, not the purpose of the kid being punished.
How did you receive this certificate?
They emailed it to me after I completed the course from Putting Kids First.
And after you received it, is that when you sent it to your caseworker?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you believe you gained some benefits from taking this particular parenting course?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's talk about the Exhibit D, the Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy Certificate. Did you also take this course online?
Yes, sir, I did.
How did you find out about this course?
Well, I was looking up some of the certificates for the RBT, and it seems as though the name throughout the years have been changed from Rational Behavior Therapy to Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy and Rational Emotional Behavioral Therapy. It's all the same class by the same founder. They're the first and second and third wave to these emotional therapies.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this testimony. She's not an expert on RBT classes.
Well, I would
In reg-
concur. I'm going to let her tell us what they covered and what she thought she learned. But
Sure.
Okay,
I'll
yeah.
go ahead and please tell me what you learned from the class.
That the emotive part of the therapy is involving the cognitive part of rational behavior therapy. What I have learned is the
And Your Honor, she's obviously reading from her laptop, and I'm going to ask that she close her laptop. If she's going to testify she learned it, she doesn't need to read it from the screen.
And I'm going to object to counsel completely interjecting. She doesn't know she's reading from a laptop, so I'm
I'm
going
watching
to
her do
object
it.
his argument. Where are you in the room?
I'm watching her do it on the screen.
I'm watching the same thing.
okay, all right, Ms. Smith. Shut your laptop down. I just want you to tell us what you think you learned. This isn't an exam, but I just want to hear what you think you learned from it.
going into situations, there's a positive and a negative way to look at negative situations. Like say if you're dealing with depression, there's a healthy side of it that is positive to recognize. That way you just experience the sadness of the event and not go into the depression part of it.
Did you learn?
Way better answer than what you were reading to me. Okay.
In regards to did you learn did they give you tools regarding how to deal with emotions?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
What else did you learn? Anything about how to deal with situations?
Yes.
What did you learn?
To look at it from all angles, to focus on the event more than your intake of it, your perception of it. Dealing with your anger or part of it, they did provide healthy tools for that also.
Do you believe the class benefited you?
Yes, sir.
Were you trying to comply with the court's order?
Yes, sir.
Now, the parenting class and this rational behavior class, did they cost you any money?
Yes, sir. I did pay out of pocket for both classes.
Okay. Now, the next question is, in regard, why did you not follow through with the 4-week the 4-week class as stated in the 4-visit class as stated in your service plan? Is there any reason you chose the parenting class that you chose rather than the other one?
There's no specific reason.
Okay. What about the rational behavior training? Is there any specific reason why you chose to take that class as opposed to the one offered by the department?
Well, yes, sir. The rational behavioral class is actually held as a seminar, and that is held by Troy Timmons on a specific date. If you miss that date, they won't have another seminar for a couple months.
Now, do you know if those were online or in person?
Those were done. Those were available virtually, I believe. Yes.
What conflicts did you have with the dates that those classes may have been on?
I had already transitioned and moved to Houston by the time everybody started calling me back.
When did you move to Houston?
I moved to Houston February 1st.
Of 2023?
Yes, sir. And I had that seminar scheduled for the 25th of February.
Okay. Now, did you hear testimony about your visits with Bible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how many times have you visited in person with Bible?
Once.
Okay. And how many times have you visited virtually with Bible?
I don't recall.
Okay. Well, was it more than one time?
Yes, sir.
Was it more than 5 times?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How, in your opinion, did those visits go?
Well, for the most part.
Okay. And did you find, was it hard? How would you was it hard to keep Bible's attention?
Yes, it was most definitely difficult to continue communication with him, with everyone watching, just from his energy and then from my energy, how we interact with one another. And with everyone watching, it kind of just gets in the way. And then, his foster mom has her daughter, and there was times whenever she was kind of in the way with with visits and their dog. But once we got to more of a secluded area where she tried her best to do with just me and Bible in the camera, we were able to communicate a lot better and find some books that he could really enjoy. And it turned out that she actually went to go get some one of the same books because he enjoyed it so much. So he loves trucks and cars. So that's what we read our books about in Mickey Mouse.
Okay. Now let's talk about the drug testing. Now it appears that you have have you drug tested a lot in this case?
Yes, sir.
Have you missed drug test appointments in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is your what is your reasoning, or what is your explanation? Were you aware of those drug testing appointments?
That was one of the issues with missing the drug test because the communication was not there. With the most recent drug tests that were supposedly sent out, I never received, and I have my emergency line with me 24/7. So I never received a request to go take one. Any request that I did receive, I was made sure that I was there.
Now, are you telling the court that every time there was a communication issue?
No, not every single time. There was one instance where I did just move down here to Houston and was not ready to discuss that with my caseworker because of the opinion side of her with me making the move. So I did miscommunicate my whereabouts with her, and she sent out a request to go do a drug test at a location where I was not at.
Okay. Now, when you say you miscommunicated your location, in other words, did you not tell the worker exactly where you were?
Where I was at, yes, sir.
Okay. Now that's on you, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you did take some UAs, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, currently, are you using narcotics?
No, sir.
So if you were to take a drug test, would you pass or fail the drug test?
I would pass.
Okay. Now let's talk about these hair follicle tests. You have some refusals because you did not have sufficient hair to take the sample. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir. That was right before I moved up here to Houston.
Okay. And were you aware that hair follicle test required you to have sufficient hair to take a test?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why did you make sure you did not have enough hair to take that test?
I wear a short hairstyle, and I was not aware that it wasn't going to be enough for them to flip off.
Was that an attempt to avoid the hair follicle test?
No, sir.
Do you understand that a failure to show up or a failure of the ability to take the test is considered to be a presumed positive?
No, I was not aware of that at the time.
Are you aware of that now?
Yes.
You mentioned your working hours. Would you have any type of plan in place if you were to receive conservatorship of your child?
As far as daycare, yes, sir.
Okay. Please describe that plan.
Bible would go to daycare during the days, and I would pick him up in the in the afternoon times.
Okay.
During the night while I go to work, he would stay here at home with my fiance.
Okay. Now, does your fiance have any children?
He has a 14-year-old. Yes, sir.
Does that 14-year-old live in your home?
No, sir. He lives with his grandmother. He comes over on the weekends.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with the behavior of the 14-year-old around a small child?
No.
Okay. Does anybody in your residence use drugs?
No.
In other words, you mentioned that Mr. Calhoun's brother, I believe you said, lives there. Did I hear that correctly?
He does.
Does anybody in the home, does he use any type of drugs or anything that would concern you around a child?
No.
What are you asking the court to do today in regards to your parental rights?
To return my child to me.
Why do you believe that you are no longer a danger to your child?
My life has completely become stable. I have a full-time job where I can provide for my son's needs and myself as well. I have a home now and a much better environment. Houston provides a lot of opportunities that Amarillo does not.
Why did you move to Houston?
For a support system. My family resides in Amarillo and also in Dallas. And stable as they are, it's not the support that I need to have. So it's Houston is a better support system for me.
Right. Did you feel that in order to get off, did you make the decision to change your lifestyle?
Yes, sir.
Why did you do that?
Because I love my kids.
Okay. And what realization did you make if you were continuing to do what you've been doing?
That I would lose my kids if I didn't make a change.
Do you want your rights terminated?
No, I do not want my rights terminated.
Do you feel you have a bond with your child?
Yes, I do.
Please explain why you believe that.
Even virtually on our visits, there's and it's just something that me and Bible know. You know, when we stop and we look at each other, and then he starts smiling, and I start laughing, and he starts laughing. It's
Your
just,
Honor,
I know
I
that,
object to the response as to anything the child knows, and that her response be limited to what she knows.
Okay, Ms. I'm also saying that, Ms. Smith, you can't tell me what the child knows, but you can tell me
Okay.
what you know.
okay. Those things that Bible loves, and those things, the interaction with me and Bible, I know that the bond is still there. We're not very inviting to new people. And that can that is one of the things that I've also learned taking one of the RBT classes, is that, you know, there's a different way to looking at that. Of course, Bible's just 2 years old, and whenever he wants his mom, he wants his mom, you know. And those are
Let me
one
go
of the-
ahead and let me go ahead and interrupt you there and ask another question, because we kind of
Yes,
got to
sir.
do this question and answer. Now, do you feel that the environment you currently have would be safe for Bible?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that was always the case?
Yes, sir.
You think that you have you always tried to care for Bible?
Yes, sir.
Do you think you can provide food, clothing, financial support?
Yes, sir.
Do you have transportation?
I do. Yes, sir.
What type of transportation do you have?
2014 Cadillac.
Okay. If Bible were to live there in the home, would he have a place to live?
Yes, sir.
What would that be?
A bedroom.
Okay. And would you be able to provide a bed and clothing and toys and food
Yes.
and take care of his basic needs?
Yes.
Okay. What about healthcare issues? Do you have any ability to take care of his any healthcare needs?
Yes.
How would you do that? What is your plan for that?
Well, right now I know that he's with Medicare. I do receive benefits from my job with healthcare. My fiance has Navy Federal Credit, not bank, but the for ex-Navy benefits also.
So your fiance is a veteran?
Yes, he is.
He was in the Navy?
Yes, sir.
And if you got married, you would have those benefits?
Yes.
Okay. Can you provide an explanation to the court as to why you just didn't follow the service plan by the letter and make this a little bit easier on everybody? Can you give an explanation for that?
I did the best that I could before moving here to Houston. I bonded out of Carson County August 1st. My attempts to reach everybody regarding the service plan, Troy Timmons, get counseling started. My phone calls never stopped with Linda Dudley. By the time everybody started to call me back, as far as Troy Timmons and Linda Dudley for the OSAR evaluation, for the drug assessment, for anger control training, and RBT, they started calling me back about January. By then, I'm already moving to Houston. So then by that time, we have to get everything switched over here to Houston. And yes, the service plan was signed off on it and provided me a new one, but there wasn't any services here lined up in Houston provided with that. So here I am trying to put it in order and trying to get it all done in a timely manner before the sport starts.
Okay, let me ask you this. Okay. Now, since you've been in Houston, we're not, without going back over what you did do, you did what's already been testified to in court, correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you love your child?
I do love my child.
Do you want any harm to come to your child?
No.
How can you assure the court that the child was placed in your care as a conservator, that we wouldn't be back in the same situation that got this thing started?
No, I completely changed my lifestyle. I completely changed my mind on any type of using, drinking, drugging. I don't even smoke cigarettes anymore. I don't have that mindset anymore. I'm not stressed out to the point of seeing no option anymore. My life has completely changed in a short matter of time, and I am where I should be.
Okay. Now, there was, in regards to the documentation you provided to the department and the exhibits we've been talking about, And did you create any of these exhibits?
No, sir.
Did anybody, I mean, so these, and in other words, the employment verification, for instance, Exhibit A, to your knowledge, did Brandy Haygood create that exhibit?
Brandy created. Yes. Yes.
The lease, we've already talked about, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we've also talked, now the pay stubs, those pay stubs, there was did you hear some questions about a Kimberly being named on the pay stub?
Kimberly is the email for Ms. Haygood. That is, we have a Connect Team app that we log into and that I clock in on for the timesheet. So her email is like, whenever she was sending it over, I guess that got tied into what she was, you know what I mean? Because we have a Connect app. They don't make paycheck stubs, but I was constant that I needed that to be made for me. So she did the best that she could with that.
So those pay stubs were your pay stubs?
Yes.
Okay. Weren't anybody else?
No.
And you actually worked those hours?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pass the witness for now, John.
Okay. That's as quickly as we can get back to this. And I know everybody would prefer to do that instead of it being a long time frame. So, all right. So we will be in recess until 3 p.m. on May 31st. We are here today to resume our final hearing, which commenced on May 24th and was reset to 3 o'clock this afternoon. It's now 3:21. We have been online and have been attempting to make contact with the mother, Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith was logged in and in the waiting room. I attempted to bring her in. She never did connect through, and then she fell out of the waiting room. We've been attempting at all known points of contact to reach her through her attorney and through the caseworker, and we're not getting any response at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed, but I will certainly be watching for her. Ms. Barfield, if you hear anything else from your client, if you'll let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and take announcements from everybody since we're here on a new day.
Todd Albee on behalf of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. I'm present, ready to proceed, Your Honor.
Brooks Barfield representing Tashida Smith. I am present. Obviously, my client was here earlier and she is not here at this particular time. I would ask that because my client is not present, that we have a continuance.
Your Honor, I would object to a continuance on it not being in the best interest of the child at this time.
Yeah, we're just taking announcements right now. I'll take that up here in a minute.
Bill Taylor representing Mark Roper, present. He is not.
And Stacy Grant on behalf of the child.
Carla King with Emerald Area CASA.
Okay. Okay, I'm really hard pressed to know what to do because she was logged in. I am not sure why she hasn't reached out to try to say she's having a difficult time or a problem, but there could be, I guess, any one of a number of reasons.
Judge, I have an objection to the continuance and maybe have an explanation as to why Ms. Smith is not attending. Ms. Haygood is strong arm security and she's here. She's going to testify to rebut Ms. Smith's allegations or statements that she's been working for strong arm security. And so we would object to any continuance and wish to go ahead and proceed today.
I would echo that objection, Judge. I have been in communication with the witness that Mr. Albee has brought forth today as well, and would echo the same objection.
Well, I'm going to grant his motion, and we're going to just set. I mean, we've called the case, so we're going to look for a different day. I'm going to give Mom one other opportunity to log in. I mean, I'm just uncomfortable moving forward. I don't want to redo this. You know, I don't want. I mean, it's, you know, my guess is Mr. Barfield will file a de novo very quickly, you know, and or appeal. So, you know, we will pick a reset date pretty quickly and give her that opportunity. But, you know, Mr. Barfield, obviously, if she's not logged in and ready to go the next go round, then we're going to proceed.
And I understand, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Haygood, I apologize. If we can get a date here real quickly, we'll go ahead and tell you that date, and you would still be under subpoena and would have to reappear at that time. But I will be happy to take you out of what we would call out of order so that you could get your testimony on and then be done with this as quickly as possible. Okay.
Judge, could I make one request? If we're going to go up to a month out at this point, she was scheduled yesterday. Tashita was scheduled yesterday for a visit with the child, or today. She was scheduled today for a visit with the child, and she did not call yesterday and set the appointment and do the 24 hours advance notice like she's supposed to. So that visit tomorrow is not going to happen once again. And so if we're going to go up to a month out, could I ask that we suspend visitation until she makes contact with her attorney or, explains what's going on in this matter and gets herself resituated to be present at court and so on?
I'm not going to make that change at this stage. If she doesn't give her 24-hour notice, then obviously it's not going to happen. So I'm not going to change the rules of the game this late. So at least that mechanism is in place. So, they're not appearing with the child or doing all of that, going through all of that just for her to no show. So if she doesn't give her advance notice, then it just won't happen.
Right. And that mechanism was put in place because of the continuing missed visits and missed appointments. Right. I was just seeing if it was appropriate to go to the next step. I appreciate it. No, I understand, but without knowing what's the situation today, I'm just not going to change the rules. I just, like I said, I don't want to do this twice, or at least I don't want to set it up for that. So, okay. So are we good on that date, June 28th? Yes, we will be in recess until that time. I appreciate everybody. Sorry, I hate to waste everybody's time, but
Judge, if I get information, I will actually advise the court at least as to what I learned in regards to what happened. If I get information just for the court knowledge.
Okay. Thank y'all. I'll see everybody back.
Thank y'all.